tragic and unexpected deaths are always frightening. Can you imagine your daughter, who has been missing for 3 weeks, being found dead and rotting in a water tank? Or imagine drinking water from this tank when you are on a weekend getaway to a nice hotel. Absolutely disgusting. This is the story of Elisa Lam. In this video, we will talk about the tragic death of this troubled young girl. Before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications. We post videos 3 times a week. This is Morbid Network. Videos about crime in every dark corner of the universe. Subscribe to our channel to prepare for the worst. Elisa Lam was a Chinese-Canadian student who was visiting Los Angeles. She was at the Cecil Hotel when something strange happened to her. Police reports are still ambivalent and unclear about what caused the death of this poor student. Looking back on Elisa's life, we learn that she was an only child and had a quiet personality. She was interested in fashion, models, and literature. In her teenage years, Elisa was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder can often manifest as depression interspersed with moments of a range of elevated mood swings, such as manic episodes. She had to take a long list of prescribed medications, and she seemed to be living a peaceful life with her family and was never violent. But Elisa created a blog where she posted her struggles with mental illness, along with photos of models. The blog was named Ether Field on Blogspot, and Elisa left it running for about 2 years. One of her blog posts read, "I spent 2 days in bed hating myself." Many of Elisa's entries were about her depression. She was critical of herself for not running, eating too much, and making excuses for it. She wrote in a blog that a relapse caused her to drop several classes at the start of her current school, leaving her feeling very lost. She even titled her blog with one of novelist Chuck Palahniuk quotes. Fast forward to 2013, Elisa Lam arrived in Los Angeles. She had just arrived in Santa Cruz on the train from San Diego as part of her solo trip up the West Coast. The trip was intended as a break from her studies at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. Her family was concerned about her traveling alone, but the young student was determined to go by herself. As a compromise, Elisa contacted her parents every day to assure them that she was safe. Therefore, her parents were surprised when they heard nothing from her on January 31st, the day she was supposed to check out of her hotel, the Cecil Hotel. Eventually, the Lams contacted the Los Angeles Police Department. The police searched the Cecil Hotel but could not find her. The police soon obtained surveillance footage from the hotel cameras. From this footage, it turned out to be really bizarre. The video from the hotel showed Elisa Lam behaving very strangely in one of the elevators on the day of her disappearance. The pixelated footage shows Elisa getting into the elevator and pressing all the floor buttons. She steps in and out of the elevator, her head poking out sideways into the hallways of the hotel in between. She peeks out of the elevator a few more times before leaving it completely. In the final minutes of the video, Elisa is standing to the left of the door, making random gestures with her hands. Other than Elisa, no one else can be seen in the video. Before diving into what happened to Elisa, let's zoom in on the hotel for a bit.
Is there a room here that maybe somebody hasn't died in? I never got used to that. Never got used to that.
The Cecil was built in 1924 as a destination for business travelers and tourists. Although the hotel flourished as a fashionable destination throughout the 1940s, the decades beyond saw the hotel decline, as the nearby area known as Skid Row became increasingly populated. As many as 10,000 homeless people lived within a 4-mile radius. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, more people ended their lives at the Cecil. RoomSpook, a website that tracks hotel deaths, lists at least 13 cases of people taking their lives at the hotel.
People call it hotel death.
It also became a notorious rendezvous spot for adulterous couples, drug activity, and a common ground for women selling their bodies for money. In the 1980s, the hotel was the temporary residence of serial killer Richard Ramirez, nicknamed the Night Stalker. Ramirez was a regular presence on the Skid Row area of Los Angeles, and according to a hotel clerk who claims to have spoken to him, Ramirez is rumored to have stayed at the Cecil for a few weeks. If you want to know more about the Night Stalker, click the link above or below in the description. Many people believe that the Cecil is haunted. The Cecil Hotel has been the location for a long list of complicated and depressing deaths. Historian Kim Cooper explains. I do really have the sense that older places have this almost subsonic vibration, if you're quiet and you're sensitive to it. You can just feel the presence of those who've come before, and it's not scary, and it isn't dark particularly. The Cecil is a place where a lot of people have done a lot of suffering, and that has a weight that can't be fully explained. You have to respect it. You have to take it in and say, this place has seen things, and it can't tell us what it's seen, but the least we can do is acknowledge it. That heaviness is evident in reviews from people who stayed at the hotel while it was still in operation. A representative Yelp review read, "The Cecil Hotel is where dreams go to die."
And feel the ground. Feel there's a little... We're picking up a pulse from the ground.
Do you want to summon someone dark?
Make something ring. Or make the count, even make the count up.
Oh,
what? My God.
What?
What do you think? Is the hotel haunted? Should we do a whole episode about this creepy place? Back to Elisa. 2 weeks after the sudden disappearance of Elisa Lam, maintenance worker Santiago Lopez found the naked dead body floating in one of the hotel's water tanks. Lopez had been sent to maintain the water tanks because there were complaints from the residents of the hotel that the water had a very low pressure and that there was a strange taste coming from the tap water. After the surveillance video, no one knows how Elisa came to be floating lifeless next to the clothes she was wearing earlier in the security footage. Who else may have been involved in this death? The hotel staff told authorities that Elisa was always seen alone in the hotel. Who was the last person to see her? The last person we know of was a nearby bookseller, Katie Orphan. Katie recalled a student buying books and music for her family in Vancouver. It seemed that Elisa had plans to return home, plans to give things to her family members and reconnect with them. Elisa's autopsy report was incomplete. It sparked insane theories about what had happened to her. Shortly after the toxicology report was released, amateur sleuths began studying all the information they could find in hopes of solving the mystery surrounding Elisa's death. A summary of Lam's toxicology report, for example, was posted online by a Reddit sleuth with an obvious interest in medicine. 3 key observations were made in the autopsy report. 1. She took at least 1 antidepressant that day. 2. Elisa had recently taken her second antidepressant and mood stabilizer, but not that day. 3. She had not recently taken her antipsychotic medication. All of these points led to the conclusion that Elisa, who was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, was not taking her medications properly. But even if Elisa Lam was suffering from mental illness, how did she die? And how did she end up in the hotel's water tank? The evidence processed during the autopsy showed no evidence of malice. However, the coroner's office stated that they were unable to conduct a full investigation because they could not examine the blood from Elisa's decomposing body. So who is responsible for the death of Elisa Lam? Several months after their daughter's death was discovered, David and Yina Lam filed a wrongful death suit against the Cecil Hotel. According to the Lamb's attorney, the hotel was obligated to inspect and detect hazards in the hotel that posed an unreasonable risk of danger to Elisa and other hotel guests. The hotel responded to the lawsuit by filing a motion to dismiss.